Well-Trained Mind Press presents Greek Myths, as told by Jim Weiss. 1. King Midas and the Golden Touch.
Long, long ago, there was a king named Midas. Now King Midas was a good man with a good heart, but not the wisest king, as we'll hear. One day King Midas was riding his horse along the road near the big river, when suddenly he heard someone crying out for help. He pulled up on the reins of his horse and stopped the horse and looked around, and then he saw an old man out in the very middle of the river, and the old man was drowning. Without a thought for his own safety, King Midas leaped from the horse, ran down to the shore and kicked off his shoes, and swam out into the water. He reached the old man just in time. Pulling him from the waves, he dragged the old man back to the shore. And then he lay there, catching his own breath. And as he lay there, catching his breath, he heard a voice. The voice behind him said, "Well done, King Midas." And Midas spun around, and there he saw Dionysus. Who was Dionysus? Dionysus was a god. A god? Well, you see, the Greeks, who made up these stories so long ago, had to explain the way the world ran, and they didn't have our science. And so they thought there were many gods and goddesses with great powers, and one was a god of the sun, who raised the sun up in the morning and held it high at noon and set it down at night. And his sister, a goddess, did the same with the moon in the evening. There were gods and goddesses of war and of love and of the wind and the sea, but Dionysus, this god, was the god of wine and celebration. And now he said, "Well done, King Midas. You have saved the life of a friend of mine, a friend who unfortunately likes my wine too well, and it gets him into trouble sometimes. This time he fell into the river and would have drowned without you. And because you saved him, without even thinking of your own safety, I shall give you a wish. Anything for which you wish, you may have it." A wish? Anything, thought King Midas. And all he could think of was what he liked. And he liked gold, so he said, "I wish, my lord Dionysus, that anything I touch will turn to gold." Dionysus just looked at him and smiled. "Very well. Anything you touch will turn to gold. Look down at yourself." And when Midas looked down at his wet clothing, it had turned to gold from touching his body. He shook his hair, and the droplets of water shook out as droplets of gold. He thanked Dionysus and ran up to his horse and put a hand on the saddle, and it turned to gold. He touched the bridle, it turned to gold. He got up under the horse, his favorite horse, and said, "We shall have all the gold we want now." And he leaned forward and patted the horse. But the horse turned to gold. "My horse has turned to gold," thought Midas. "I cannot ride him any longer. Oh well, with all the gold I shall have, I can buy all the horses I want." And he got down from the statue of the horse and began to walk home to his palace. And then he was so excited, he began to run, and he ran home. Then he reached the gates of his palace, and he saw the guards there. And he went up and touched the spears of the two guards, which turned to gold. The guards were astounded. Midas just laughed and went in through the gate and touched it, and it turned to gold. He went through the rooms of his palace, touching things here and touching things there, and each one would turn to gold. He was delighted. But at last he grew hungry. After all, he had a long morning riding his horse, saving the life of the old man, running home to his palace, and now dashing from room to room. So he said to his servants, "Bring me lunch. Fish, I think, and wine." And he sat down at the dining room table, and he picked up his knife and fork, and they turned to gold. He picked up his plate, and it was shining gold. His chair, of course, had turned to gold as soon as he sat in it. Now they brought him the trout, the fish, and they set it on his plate. And Midas said, "This looks delicious." And using the golden knife and fork, he cut himself
Sample complete. Ready to continue?